I'd like to call to order tonight's Plan and Zone meeting. We will not have a public hearing tonight. It will be our regular meeting. I see we have a fair amount of people in the crowd. I need to ask everybody to turn your cell phones off because it could interfere with our audio transmission. I'm doing something a little, well, let me get into the meeting. Let's start with the roll call first. Commissioner Tallman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Schneider's excused. Lammers?
Present.
Johnson's excused. Tallman here. Ingram?
Present.
Hepner?
Here.
Bransgard?
Here.
Reinhardt?
Here.
Manus?
Here.
Garrington?
Here.
And Stelk.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Tallman. Before we get into the meeting, we have a new commissioner tonight, Jim Stelk. Jim, could you activate your microphone and maybe give us a minute or so introduction as to your history?
Well, I'm Jim Stelk. I was born in Davenport, and I've lived here 50 years, but I took a little time out and graduated from Bettendorf High School, and then I came back. And my wife taught many years at Monroe School, which I graduated from, and I spent my career with the U.S. government at the Rock Island Arsenal in computers as a systems analyst and in the financial field. And I graduated from the University of Iowa, and I attended law school at the University of Iowa. And that's about it for now.
Thank you, Commissioner Stelk. We look forward to your contributions.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, we have no zoning activity. Well, let me back up a little bit. Report of City Council.
Thank
Laura?
you. I have quite a lot to report on. So.
Thank you. I didn't want to leave you out.
So the zoning amendments have been adopted by City Council. The second consideration for case REZ 21-02, which is at 1320 West Kimberly Low Road, moved to third consideration. The case REZ 21-03, which is the 6403 Elmore Avenue, moved to second consideration. They approved both the preliminary plats for Dan Dolan Homes and Russell Construction for the preliminary plats of both the Birchwood Grove and Birchwood South First Edition. In addition, there was a moratorium put in place at the mall restricting certain uses while staff creates a new zoning district specific to the mall to encourage revitalization at that critical part of the city. So that moratorium is a 6-month one, so that will eventually be coming to the plan and zone for amendments to the zoning code. I think that's it.
Thank you. Secretary's report.
Move the report.
Second.
Report's been moved and seconded as printed. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, it's unanimously approved. We have anything in comprehensive plan, Laura?
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Zoning activity, we have nothing, but we do have 4 items under subdivision, and tonight I'm going to move a little differently than we normally would. We have a petition, our first petition. Staff is actually recommending it be tabled, but it's been brought to my attention that there are probably a fair amount of people in the audience that would like to hear about this and possibly speak. So I am going to modify how we handle this. There will be an eventual recommendation for tabling. Looking for a second later, but in the meantime, I'm going to have Commissioner Tallman will read it, and then I will ask staff to make their presentation, and then I will open it up to questions either from commissioners or comments to be made from the audience. If you do wish to speak, you'll need to, one by one, come up to the table, the podium, identify yourself and your address, and you've got 3 or 4 minutes to make your statement, 5 at the most, and hopefully since we have a lot of people here, if everybody wants to speak, let's try to limit the duplication. Let's try to bring up new ideas, new thoughts, new concerns, and doesn't mean you have to be against it. If you're in favor of it, speak that way too. But we'll move on to the first case, Commissioner Tallman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Case P21-03 requested Dan Dolan Homes for a preliminary plat of a 38-lot subdivision on 7.18 acres located south of Lincoln Road, east of Broad Lawn Avenue, north of Riverview Park Drive, and west of Kimberly Road. Staff recommends the Plan and Zoning Commission table case P21-03 until after the petitioner holds the requested neighborhood informational meeting, followed by a separate meeting with both Davenport and Bettendorf staff. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to hold off, as you mentioned, on a motion at this point so we can have discussion.
Thank you, and I would entertain, once discussion is complete, if you would make that motion, Commissioner Tallman. Staff, Laura?
Sure. So of the 38 lots, 10 of them are proposed on City of Davenport city limit area. So as you see on the photo in front of you, on the left-hand side of the dotted line, that is City of Davenport. The majority of the subdivision is actually taking place in the city of Bettendorf. As such, it is a complicated process that has been taking a lot of time and a lot of communication needed between both cities. So the zoning specific to the Davenport piece, because we do not have on our mapping, we don't have the Bettendorf zoning, it is zoned R4C. So R4C is a single two-family residential zoning district. It is a denser district, but it also calls for the preservation of established neighborhoods. According to our future land use 2035 comprehensive plan, it is residential general. So residential and supportive services area nodes for commercial within that. One of the larger challenges that the city is very concerned about is the topography of the area. We have not seen enough information to see how it's feasible to do the Crestline Drive connection. Currently, at the end of Crestline Drive, that is about a 33% slope down. And then, so leading to that, we also have concerns about drainage along that. So those are two of our concerns related to topography. Also, it is unclear at this time, based off of the dimensions on the plat, whether they meet the minimum standards for lot width along the Davenport part. So those are some of the things that are outstanding. We have a meeting scheduled with Bettendorf for later this week, and we're hoping to iron out some of the details. When you have a subdivision that crosses city limits, there are additional things that need to be discussed, including city services, them accepting stormwater from the city of Davenport, them accepting sewer lines, it's maintenance of roads, it's snow plowing. Those are all discussions that need to be taken place. The earlier, the better. So we have that part of the discussion. And then the traffic and site access. There are some concerns about backup of traffic on Lincoln into the subdivision, and then people seeking alternative routes, causing additional traffic in our existing neighborhoods. That is all I have at this time.
Thank you, Laura. Is the petitioner here, do you know?
I don't see.
Or a representative?
Let me see. He's not logged on. So the engineer was out of town, so I gave him the opportunity to participate virtually, but he has not logged in.
Okay.
I don't see a representative from the developer
Okay.
in the audience.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions before I open it up to the audience? Seeing none at this time. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak either in favor of or in opposition to this petition? Please step forward one by one, identify yourself.
Or was it before I left? My phone, I had to email it to myself. I'm Amy McClure Swearingen. I live at 16 Riverview Park Drive. I am a Bettendorf resident, however, I'm right there on the line, and I have to go up Riverview Park Drive, turn on Cofelt, Crestline, Broadlawn. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Laura Berkeley for helping me, along with Mark Hunt from Bettendorf, to help me direct the public to her to share their concerns. Educating the public on the steps in the chain of command is valuable for both parties. Knowing that this was going to be tabled and also realizing the Planning and Zoning Board approves prior in order for it to move on to City Council, we appreciate the public is being allowed to be heard tonight. Understanding this gives your staff, the developer, who's not here tonight, unfortunately, and the City of Bettendorf to hear a few of the concerns prior to working together on this possible development. It seems most citizens do not realize or follow closely proposed ideas like this, and when they do, it's usually too late to voice their concerns or ask questions, which then does not create a very warm, loving feeling for everyone. Being able to speak tonight helps to articulate clearly what we need all parties to hear, why planning and moving forward with a recommendation instead of after the process. Because the next time we come, we would assume that there would be a presentation from your staff, and then you would listen to it, and then you would vote on it. So thank you for hearing about the concerns so it can be part of the process. For many of us, buying extra land is not possible. We trust our aldermen and our city staffs that will be thorough, seeking the data and the information that will benefit the existing citizens living in the affected area currently. It has been requested by the City of Bettendorf that the developer, which I think Davenport has agreed to require, quote, to hold a broadly publicized neighborhood and informational meeting prior to the projects being heard by the City of Bettendorf Planning and Zoning and Davenport. It has been my experience that with another new development in our area that the ideas and concerns were shared at a public meeting with a developer, yet not addressed by the developer when it came time to present to P&Z. So we arrived that night and we started to we shared our concerns and some thought was put into it. So we're starting here tonight to lay the groundwork why this proposed idea is vetted. So I think many of us we just appreciate you listening to us, and I'm just going to start with a few. I think everyone will have a lot of other ones. The traffic is a big concern, and we're not just talking on Crestline. That impacts Broadlawn to Middle to Locust. It goes to Elmore. Broadlawn goes out to 6th Street, which turns into Elmore. So there's a huge impact here. And then the entry, I'm very unclear. I think it might be Bettendorf or Davenport, but where they're talking on the curve of Lincoln, there's a stoplight there about 15 feet away, but the congestion there is very high right now. So I couldn't imagine having 38 homes in there, what that would do. I would encourage you to have that part of those conversations. And I think about all the equipment that possibly could go back there. And I agree, I'm not even sure if this is feasible to do it on this land, but if you're doing it, why wouldn't that come off Kimberly Road into Bettendorf? And that would be a conversation to have. I'm sure that the developer doesn't want to pay for a turn lane, but we already have another condos down the street. They turn on and off Kimberly, but the amount of equipment going on these side residential streets. We do not have sidewalks over in our area as well. Large walking area for young families up and down our street. The traffic is a big concern, but also the homeowners, and especially the ones that are directly impacted. Bettendorf residents are impacted by this, as well as Davenport. They're going to be looking into this in their backyard. I've kind of been a neighborhood advocate. I get a lot of the emails. I was shocked with all the different things that I heard. The drainage issues off Cofelt, where it runs back all into the ravine. I wasn't even aware of that. Wildlife, has DNR been contacted? What is that looking like? I'm going to stop there because I think other people have other questions, but I just, again, for speaking on behalf of the group, I just appreciate you guys listening to these ideas now along with Laura, because I think that helps when you're going in and you're sitting down instead of waiting us. If we came to the next meeting with a recommendation, I almost feel like it's too late. So we just appreciate your time and effort to listen to us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would like to let everybody know that even though this is out of our normal course, when this does come back to us after the state tabling and after our meeting with Bettendorf and whatnot, I will again allow neighbors to speak before we take a vote. So
All right, thank you.
I'm sure Laura will it'll be advertised as to when our next meeting
And
will
I'll do
be.
a shout out to the Ward 6 Alderman, Ben. I don't know if he's here tonight. But he was very receptive, and all following the correct protocol. I'm a kindergarten teacher by trade. I like rules, and I like explaining to people what the rules are. So I just wanted to, thank them for explaining to people, this isn't a city council issue right now. We have to go to planning and zoning. So I just appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
My name is Carolyn Brown. I moved to Davenport a year ago. I live at 1340 Crestline Drive. It happens to be the property that is right at the dead end of the proposed road. There is very narrow, probably about like this, edge to my property, then it goes right into the ravine. So I am concerned about the ravine because I have enjoyed watching deer and other wildlife, but I'm even more concerned about my property. I'm concerned about drainage. I'm concerned about my foundation because when there starts being removal of trees that are right next to my property, I don't know what that's going to do to the edge of my property. I'm worried about sewer backups just because I've been explained, the plumbers have explained to me that I have a very flat line. And so it's not like I have a lot of pressure that I can deal with that would come back in towards my line if I have backflow into my line. I think the main thing I want is I want to be able to get out of my driveway. I'm very concerned that there's going to be equipment, especially with sewer and water hookups, that my driveway I cannot access out. So those are my concerns, and I'm happy to have you let us speak.
Thank you. Next.
I am Libet Brook, 1726 Broadlawn in Davenport. And I had two questions. One, unfortunately, was for Mr. Dolan, who isn't here, but I'll save that one. Do any of you, have you guys all been involved in planning and zoning? Do you know of another developer who has come before you interested in that property that we're talking about?
That would be a question for staff, but we have not seen anything on that property. And I've been here a long time.
Okay,
Yeah, it's
and I'm gonna-
currently unsubdivided, so no one has attached to any kind of subdivision to that property yet. So it has not, to the best of my knowledge, it has not come before the commission.
And that's kind of my point, that, the neighborhood has been there, 50 years at least. When did Slavens put in that huge development? And has anybody in that amount of time come before anybody in the city and say, we're interested in this property? And if the answer is no, then I have to say, why is that? Why is it that that property has not been thought of before? And again, I have to go back to the topography and say, that just seems to me to be a lot of trouble.
You can go ahead and ask your question for the petitioner, and staff can record that and
Okay.
possibly get it asked between
Oh, okay.
now and
All
our
right.
next meeting.
Actually, the developer has arrived.
Okay.
So you can ask your question and then he has the opportunity to respond.
Okay, all right, my question.
After you get done speaking, you can throw your question out there now, but after you get done speaking, I'm going to ask the petitioner to come up
Okay.
and do his speech, and then we'll carry on with the audience.
Okay, my question for him is this an all or nothing proposition? In other words, he has to get permission an okay to do the whole development as presented? Or would he consider a lesser amount? Would he consider just Bettendorf? I think that would be an interesting question for him to answer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did you have anything else?
No.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dolan, would you care to speak on your petition? Then we'll get back to the audience. And you can address that lady's question when you get done giving your description.
Yes, absolutely. Kevin Dolan for the development team. Thank you for allowing me to come up and speak. This parcel is actually, this site rather, consists of 3 parcels. 2 to the east in Bettendorf, 1 to the west in Davenport. I heard the first part of the question, which is why has it sat forever? It is a unique and difficult piece of ground to develop. There is a lot of topography to deal with. Not that we can't deal with those things, but what has helped us, when I know maybe a dozen other developers over the years have looked at the 2 parcels in Bettendorf, is that we have now put together a 3rd parcel. What that allows us to do is loosen up the belt, so to speak. We have more room to work with. We can mass grade and take fill from the northwest and fill to the south. It makes a lot of things possible that you can't do with just the 2 lots in Bettendorf. The second part of the question, is it all or nothing? This is a piece of property that's going to take a lot of work to develop. We're willing to put in that work and get it on the tax rolls and make it a productive piece of real estate for both cities. But in order to do that, we need the lots that are there. And, we're not coming in asking for a rezoning. We've done that in this very room, asked for rezoning to make certain projects work. In this case, we're not. We are going to conform to all the existing zoning. These are single-family detached and some single-family attached or semi-attached, duplex-style condos for seniors. This is about as low impact as it gets. We build this product all over. These are folks that, in many cases, are down to, they have 1 vehicle for the family. They take fewer trips. The data shows that they take trips at off-peak hours. This is a very low impact use, and we're also going to put it in an HOA that provides for all of the common area, or all of the exterior maintenance to the yards, takes care of snow, takes care of the detention area. So we're going to take something that has sat for decades because it really couldn't be developed. We've added another parcel and made it so we can do something really nice here. We want to take elements of themes of architecture and the character of that neighborhood and incorporate that into the architecture of the homes. And the great thing is we sit adjacent to an older historic neighborhood in McClellan Heights and a senior housing development. So we're at the crossroads of the 2 things that we're trying to do here. What we found in many places is that the built-in customer base is the residents of the current neighborhood because they like that neighborhood. That's where their friends are, their doctor, their church, all the things are there. But the laundry's in the basement, the bedrooms are upstairs. The house doesn't work for them anymore. And so we create an age-in-place product where they can stay in their own neighborhood. And it conforms to the zoning. It's low impact. It'll be good for the neighborhood. And, I can go back and listen if there's any more questions of me. But I know that staff has recommended it be tabled. I would ask that you allow it to go forward. We submitted in accordance with the timeline for this to go to council to vote on the preliminary plat. Staff comments were minor, which we're more than willing to address all of those things as we go through the process. But we would like to let this continue through the process.
Thank you. Will you be here for the entire meeting? In case
Absolutely.
somebody has a
Yep.
question, I
Yep.
would appreciate that. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the developer at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on to the audience.
My name's Greg Gappel. I live at 1116 Kofelt Avenue, that's in Bettendorf. And I think there's, when I look at this, there's two questions I have. One is density, just the number of units that are on this piece of property, which is a very difficult piece of property because of the topography. And the other is access. How do you get access to 40 homes, 80 people, 80 cars, times two, couple hundred cars a day coming in and out of there? And if you look at that plat, it kind of jumped out at me. I served a few terms on the Bettendorf Plan and Zone Commission. And it seems pretty obvious that why don't you use Kimberly Road for an access? That's a 4-lane. Trips would come in and out so much easier. I assume it would take more land and probably reduce the number of units. But pushing all that traffic, if you're familiar with, if you look at Crestline now, it's a half a block and it dead ends into Broadlawn. Broadlawn goes up to Middle, which is a very busy street. It's hard to get on, get across. And you look at Lincoln, it's not uncommon in using it any time of the year that there's 4 or 5 cars stacked up on the stoplight trying to get on to Kimberly. I mean, it's almost insanity with those two access points. It's almost crazy to suggest that. And I guess my question is somewhat procedural too. I don't really want this going to a community meeting where we rant and rave for an hour and a half, and then a developer doesn't have to do anything. He can come back to you and not do anything. I guess I'm surprised staff hasn't already discussed the access issue. Have you? Especially, in particular, on the
Generally, the question should be asked towards the commission.
well, in particular, into Kimberly. I mean, I think that just jumps out at you. And if so, if that's an issue, the plat should go back to the developer to come in with a plat that says, hey, put it on Kimberly.
Well, and again, we have not fully vetted this project because we have yet to meet with Bettendorf. So before we get to that point, that's why we were looking, staff is recommending for a tabling tonight, but I decided due to the population of people that are here to allow you to speak what's on your mind. We don't have a lot of answers for you yet. This will, if it gets tabled, be another cycle or two before it gets through Bettendorf and come back before us.
I understand that. I appreciate the
So I
opportunity to
don't
say that.
have those answers at this point.
But I guess what I'm saying is, why not delay it and request staff meet and come up with a better access plan before the community meetings?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next.
Can I address that?
Sure.
I would just like to say, before we did any of this, I met with both city staffs and discussed this concept. So, I appreciate the working relationship that we have with both cities. No one in their right mind would spend as much money and effort as we have without talking to both cities first. So I do want to just set the record straight that we have done that. That was the very first thing we did. I imagine that dialogue will continue throughout, but I couldn't let it stand that we haven't met with both city staffs.
That's fine. Thank you.
And then Commissioner?
Yes.
Chair? I would like to say that we have been in contact with the city of Bettendorf, and we have had conversations over the phone. We have not had the opportunity due to scheduling conflicts to meet in person yet. And it's one of the reasons why staff has asked for this to be tabled. I wanted it on the agenda to give the opportunity to do just what we're doing here tonight.
Thank you, Laura. Next.
Good evening. My name is Leslie Mitchell, and I live at 1205 Kofelt Avenue, which is officially Bettendorf. I'm proud to say that I moved back to Bettendorf from long time living in big cities. I thought I'd be bored coming back to the Quad Cities, but I found myself really falling in love with it as an adult. We moved from Chicago, Illinois, and I was shocked to find out I could park somewhere and not have to pay. So I have one question and one comment, and I believe it's about 5:30 as of right now. And my question would be to Mr. Dan Dolan. As of right now in live time, have you ever tried to make a left off Locust onto Broadlawn at 5:30 p.m.? You will sit through at least 2 songs and probably upset some people. And then my statement is, I know Mr. Dolan was speaking from I think a technology standpoint. As we've grown, this beautiful forest area couldn't be developed, and now we're in a more modern time. That's why it has sat for so long. My statement would be, just because you can do something doesn't necessarily mean you should. And I like the deer. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hey, good evening. My name's Sean Liddell. I'm at 1651 Broadlawn Avenue. Just a little background. Before my family and I moved to Davenport, I was the 7th Ward Alderman on the Moline City Council for 5 years and also served as a commissioner on the Bi-State Regional Commission. I really don't, granted there's not as much development on the Illinois side, but I really don't recall a residential development that was this out of place and out of touch. I'd really like to thank the city planning staff for their thorough review. And you've identified significant concerns relating to topography of the overall subdivision, impacts to traffic, drainage concerns, and I and many of our neighbors share these concerns. And I'm actually at ground zero of, what we've learned has been the enabling property. So we have this Davenport property that will now enable Bettendorf to have a very nice subdivision, I guess. With regards to drainage, there's a standing marsh that turns into a running stream that runs directly across the 4 southernmost Davenport plots. Where is this water going to flow? Or perhaps build up once the ravine is filled and graded, mass grade during the mass grading effort. And how high will the grade be on these Davenport parcels? We're going to look, my neighbors and I are going to be looking at this mass grading effort for who knows how long. We moved to a neighborhood that, has been around for 70 plus years, established. Not what we were expecting. Can we see a rendering of what this view is going to look like once this is graded?
Again, this is a preliminary plat.
I know.
The final plat will bring additional information forward too.
Absolutely. So Davenport Code states existing neighborhoods are anticipated to maintain their existing characteristics in terms of land use and mixed density, and standards of the R4C district are intended to ensure the new development is complementary to the existing developed character of these neighborhoods. So this proposed development is clearly not meeting these standards. The 10 proposed Davenport parcels are more than twice as dense as the existing neighborhood. There's exactly 0 35-foot tall, 2.5-story townhomes in our neighborhood right now. It removed this. This proposal really removes the desirable large yards and spacious design of our newer construction northern neighborhoods, compacting the density by a factor of 2 or 3, and attempts to shoehorn this shrunken design into the neighborhood that was established, some 70 years ago. How is this complementary to the existing developed neighborhoods? How does it meet that requirement? Regarding traffic, as others have mentioned, can Crestline and Broadline really sustain the wear and tear from, 38 new homes? And as well, not to mention the heavy equipment and machinery that would need to be brought in to develop this land? Can our kids that are playing out on these tiny streets with sidewalks right up next to the street, can we really count that they'll be able to play safely as they've been accustomed to? If this development managed to get approved as it is, Bettendorf, not Davenport, will recognize 75% of the property tax base expansion. But Davenport shoulders the burden. So I'd really commend Bettendorf planning staff actually for anticipating that Davenport would have major concerns, and they correctly required Davenport City Council resolution approving Crestline connectivity before Bettendorf will even consider it. Thank you, Bettendorf. To wrap up my comments, my request to Laura and the planning team is to continue the great work you've started. Continue to weigh the pros and cons of allowing access to a mostly Bettendorf development from our Davenport residential streets before providing guidance to the City Council on the merits of such a resolution. How could that resolution truly serve the best interests of Davenport? To our aldermen that are in attendance tonight, same question. Why would we approve the access to a development that only benefits Davenport by pushing so many of the negatives and the burdens to Davenport? And finally, my ask of the Plan and Zone Commission, simply continue providing excellent service to our great city, our neighborhoods, and our residents. Weigh this preliminary plat request as you would with any other, with great care and attention to detail, ensuring that it adheres to the letter and the spirit of our city codes. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Douglas Gaither. I live at 1640 Broadlawn Avenue. You may think, well, I've already heard what you're going to say. What I'm going to say has to do with access, and I have 11 reasons that I'm not for this. And they are grandchildren. We love to play in our yards. I don't want traffic run back and forth. I won't tell you where all I've been, what all I've seen, but I have seen development, and I know what it's going to do to the relationship with me and my grandchildren, all 11 of them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next.
My name is Molly Mahoney. I'm a resident of Bettendorf. I live at 744 Brown Street. Has there been made mention of how much the cottages and the duplex would sell for?
I don't know.
Generally speaking, in terms of when we review subdivisions, that's not something we look at, so we have not asked.
Mid 400,000 range.
Okay. And let's say if everything goes through, no issues, no questions. As far as a timeline,
Ma'am, you have to address us.
what would the timeline be from the very start, breaking ground, until, let's say, the last couple of homes get sold?
We'll get that answered.
Okay, all right, and then just one more thing. Actually, it's illegal to make a left-hand turn from Locust onto Broadlawn. Sorry, I do that too, but yeah, so whatever that's worth. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Next.
Hello, my name is Nick Daner. I live at 1628 Broadlawn, which is at the intersection of Crestline and Broadlawn, so at that T there. So my family and I have lived there for 15 years. We love Davenport, plan to stay in Davenport. One question that I guess I haven't heard brought up yet is just the potential for how much traffic could come off of Lincoln and Kimberly, cut through the court, and come through the area besides the residents. So I think I see that as a big concern with the number of cars I see making that left on Locust, coming down Broadlawn to 6th to get to the river. So I'd anticipate a lot of traffic beyond just the residents, but people cutting through the area as well. So I just wanted to raise up that question as well as a potential concern.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Good evening. My name's Jay Draymond. I live at 1637 Broadlawn. That's on the east side of Broadlawn, where the backyards that most people in our neighborhood actually don't even realize are there. They're very large backyards, and as my neighbor, Sean Liddell, pointed out, we are ground zero for the Davenport portion of the development. And the thing that I want to address is has to do with the elevation. I won't talk about the traffic impact because I think you've got the concern on that. It's been expressed very well. But the elevation, and generally speaking, when elevation is presented in a diagram, most residents can't visualize that. Chairman Ingram, I am impressed when I sat down and I heard you say, come up with your comments or your ideas. And I want to propose something. And it's something that is done in a lot of municipalities increasingly across the country, though I don't think it's done here. And that is the concept of story polls. And I would ask staff and perhaps the commission to consider requiring that during this informational period. Story polls, not S-T-O-R-E-Y, story polls. If any of you are in construction, you know that that's like a giant ruler that the contractors use to measure stories on a house. This is S-T-O-R-Y. Story polls are used to tell a story about the massing and size of a proposed project. And the developer of the project goes out onto the site and he erects poles that represent the silhouette of portions of the project so that the residents can see where the grade is going to be. This property in Davenport, I don't know how many of you have actually seen it. It sits down in a basin and it drains all the surface area. If you'll imagine that where you're sitting, Chairman, is Broadlawn. That's my backyard. And where you lady and gentlemen are sitting is Crestline. And you all are on a combination of Middle Road and Lincoln, where all the traffic is piling up on your lap, as a matter of fact. So you're looking down into this basin. This is grade currently, but it won't be once this mass grading occurs. It simply won't be. You're not going to be looking down into a rooftop view of this development. There's going to be a new grade. That's assuming that they can deal with all of the drainage issues that are involved. The new grade is going to be up here. It's not going to sit down. This is not going to be a development that sits down in a hole. This is going to be raised up with this and when he's talking about mass grading, he's not kidding. This is mass grading. There's a lot of earth that's going to have to be moved to fill in the ravine, build a road, actually a road, a cul-de-sac, and a spur, so to speak, and then fill in this basin. So you're then going to take that new grade and put a 35-foot tall, a 2.5-story structure on top of that. We're not going to be looking down into a development. We're going to be looking either at or up at a development. And one of the things I'm concerned about with this new elevation is the fact that we are going to lose all the light in our backyards, except essentially when the sun is overhead. We're going to be placed, essentially, our backyards are essentially going to be placed in a light well. And that is a huge impact. I don't know if it's appropriate to hand this to.
You would have to go to staff to Laura.
Laura. This is just 3 photographs that are examples of story poles. It's just the outline of, let's say, two of the cottages, the 2.5-story, $400,000 cottages that are going to go on this 1.7 acre portion, and, you know, maybe take two of them and actually indicate where grade is, the new grade, not where it is now, and 35 feet above that. And we can see the outline of it. It will tell the story of the massing and the size of what is proposed in a way that this informational meeting that is going to happen will actually allow the neighborhood to be informed, to ask questions, to be able to understand what is going on, what is actually going to be erected there, without having to have special skills to read an elevation on a piece of paper and then speak intelligently about it. Anyway, I really appreciate the fact that you asked about ideas, and that's mine whether you choose to adopt it or not, but it is something that is being used more and more across the country. The only other thing I would add, if you care to hear, and I'm trying to be respectful of your time, but two friends of mine and I, 2 Wednesdays ago, went out onto Broad Lawn at 4:30, between 4:30 and 5:30. And we just did an informal traffic count. And one of us went down to the corner of Broad Lawn and Locust with a walkie-talkie, and one of us at the corner of Broad Lawn and 6th, where it goes down to the river. And I conveniently stood in front of my house, and we counted cars. And we counted in 1 hour 82 vehicles. Now, I realize this isn't scientific, and it's not what you would request with a traffic study or something, but we were just curious. We see the traffic, the increase in the traffic there. There are 82 vehicles in 1 hour. That's, on average, more than a vehicle and a half per minute. 80% of them were northbound. They were coming up from the river, having perhaps come across the bridge, and they're going out of the development. They're going up to Locust. What are they doing? They're cutting through, they're cutting away from the traffic on Locust that several people have been referring to. They can eliminate several blocks of traffic by going down Broad Lawn as opposed to Eastmere or Pine Acre or any of the other streets, because we're the last street before you hit commercial development, before you get to the interstate. So that's a big impact. And now you're going to add, I don't know what you consider here, but most municipalities is today 2.5 vehicles per house times 38. And that doesn't include things like nannies and housekeepers and gardeners, well, even though they will belong to the association, and snow removal vehicles and food delivery and all sorts of things that are going to be going on. It's going to be an impact that is unbelievable, because they will get to Crestline, and then they either will turn right, as most of them are doing now anyway, and head out to the interstate, or they're going to turn left and go down to the river to head downtown to visit you at a meeting, or to get on the bridge and go across the river. Anyway, this is a huge impact, and I just pray that no one convinces you that this is some mild impact. This is a tremendous impact, and as Sean pointed out earlier, Davenport is going to bear the bulk of the impact, and financially, we're not going to see much of the tax base at all. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next.
Point of clarification, we have no intention or contemplation to do 35-foot. I believe that's the limit of that the current zoning would allow. We contemplate this product as ranch homes, stepless entry, built for seniors. So these are 14 to 1,700 square foot ranch style homes. And then the other point, if the concern is traffic coming from the south heading north, we should have every reason to believe that just as many cars would turn right onto Crestline and head east as would go west. So it seems like it would help alleviate the situation that was last described, but that's all I had. Thank you.
Next.
Hi, I'm Carol Ryan. I live at 3432 Crestline Drive, which is the second to the end house there. I've lived there for 45 years. And one of my concerns was the elevation, which they've sort of talked about now. But I've loved living there, and the reason I stayed for so long is because it's quiet and peaceful. There's wildlife, and it's very safe. And I really feel this will all change it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments?
My name is Mark Gray. I live at 1605 Kofeld Avenue. I'm actually the very last house in Davenport, but the development shows the backyard would actually be Bettendorf. I think most of us love living in our neighborhood because we have these beautiful trees, spacious yards, and as someone discussed this earlier, one of the standards for the new neighborhoods was to keep the integrity of the neighborhoods. I don't know if you guys have seen what this plot is, but it's probably thousands of trees. So we're talking about knocking down thousands of trees. I know there's newer neighborhoods on the north side of Davenport, like Prairie Heights, which that's a different neighborhood than McClellan Heights. So they want to rebrand everything into McClellan Heights, but it's not going to have the charm. It's not going to have the integrity. I also want to just echo, if you go 20 yards into my backyard, there's a ravine that everyone's talked about. Where's the water going to go? They're going to have to put the dirt over it. Is my yard going to start being eroded out? Is there going to be water coming into my yard? I think there's still just a lot of questions that we have with how everything's going to happen. So,
Thank you. Any additional questions?
In closing, we all heard a number of concerns. I am not up here asking for a building permit to start putting in the first cottage at McClellan Heights. You know, we are asking for a vote that we met the existing zoning, that we submitted and met the basic design standards, and to allow this to continue the process. We have a number of technical things to continue working towards and through, and we are committed to do that, but we would ask that the process be allowed to continue.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, my name is Joanna Dorder. I live at 21 Riverview Park Drive. I also share a lot of the concerns that have been mentioned, so I'm not going to belabor those points. But I do want to just make one suggestion. If the topography of this development could be managed and issues with drainage and long-term impact to the surrounding homes could be alleviated, and especially to the development south, existing condominium development south of there, I worry about the foundation there and the water runoff there. If all that could be managed and potential issues could be avoided, and even foundation issues with all of these homes that may be built, 10 years from now on a filled-in ravine, if that could be guaranteed, they wouldn't have issues. Then I would like to see possibly avoiding that crest line cut through from Bettendorf to Davenport, maybe proposing a cul-de-sac with a walking path to connect that neighborhood to the existing neighborhood. It was a suggestion from one of my neighbors, so I wanted to make sure that suggestion was made. We love our neighborhood. It's a wonderful walkable neighborhood with lots of great trees, lots of shady roads to walk on. None of us have sidewalks, and we kind of like that because it is a very nice atmosphere to live in. But it also would have this potential development would have access to our lovely neighborhood and our lovely walkable streets and our hilly Bix routes and all of that. So be a great amenity for them. But so long as all of that could be avoided, all of the issues could be avoided, that would be one suggestion I'd like to make.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments before I close the open portion? Please step forward quickly, please.
I just had a question is if the developer would consider a exit or entrance off of East Kimberly Road, if he's considered that and looked at that option.
It'll be part of the discussion between Davenport and Bettendorf. Next.
I'll make this quick. I live at 1643 Broadlawn Avenue, and I have been there over.
Your name, please.
Bonita Stewart.
Thank you.
I've been there over 12 years. I moved there when I saw the backyard. It was beautiful forest, and that was the main thing why I bought property. The fact that it's a brick cottage style house, I love it. And when I bought the property, I was told on the abstract that it's Mississippi Heights. It is not McClellan. We do not live in McClellan Heights. It's Mississippi. And I just want to document that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Last chance, last call before I close the open session.
My name is Kirk Vandekar. I live at 1646 Broad Lawn. And my question for you folks would be, why do we entertain these proposals for new developments? Why does Davenport want new developments? Well, I assume it's because it adds to the tax base, makes our city a more desirable place to live and so forth. And from what I've heard today, this is a losing proposition for Davenport, this proposal, because most of the infrastructure and so forth is going to be on Davenport's shoulders. And certainly the neighbors in Davenport around this development, we are going to be the ones that are paying the price. Bettendorf's they don't have anything in the game as far as I can see, and they're going to get all the gain. Davenport's not going to get any. Not the residents that live there, and not the people, the rest of Davenport, who would want the tax base. So, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, at this time, do you have any questions before we move a motion? Seeing none, Commissioner Tallman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to table this one cycle per staff's recommendation.
The petitions have been moved and seconded. I have a roll call, please.
Lammers.
Yes.
Tallman, yes. Hepner.
Yes.
Bransgard.
Yes.
Reinhardt.
Yes.
Manus.
Yes.
Garrington.
Yes.
And Stelk. Yes. Motion carries, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Tallman. Next case. If any of you would like to leave, could you please do that now? We have additional business to carry out.
I'll go out there and take a look at that one. I'll go out and take a look and see what that looks like.
All right, Commissioner Tallman, could we carry on, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next case is F21-03, request of SB Real Estate LLC for final plat of a 3-lot subdivision on 122.4 acres located at the southeast corner of West 76th Street and North Division Street. Staff recommends the Planning and Zoning Commission accept the listed findings and forward case F21-03 to the City Council with recommendation for approval, subject to the 11 listed conditions, and I so move.
Second.
Staff, would you care to comment?
Sure. The proposed final plat is for a 3-lot subdivision on the undeveloped property shown on the map, located roughly at the southeast corner of 76th Street and Division. The current zoning of the property, it falls under 4 different zoning classifications. At the north west portion of the property, it's zone C2, which is a corridor commercial district. The northeast portion is a light industrial zone district. And then just south of that is R4 zoning. And then as you can see, the blue line across the map is Goose Creek, which separates the R4 portion to the north and then R3 to the south. The future land use plan identifies this area as residential general, as well as open space and public land. So Goose Creek does flow through this 122 acre parcel. And there is a significant amount of floodplain shown. This mostly impacts the residentially zoned portion of the property, which will need to be accommodated for during future subdivisions. On the map before you is the proposed final plat. So the boundary of the 3 lots is roughly, or is the outline of the zoning districts. So Lot 1 is the commercially zoned portion at the northwest corner. That's roughly 15.7 acres of land. And then at the northeast portion is Lot 2, which is 9.8 acres of industrially zoned land. And then Lot 3 consists of the entire residentially zoned portion of property, which is just shy of 95 acres. As part of the plat, the city has requested that right-of-way be dedicated for the future extension of Marquette Street, starting at 76th Street and then extending south, where it would eventually tie back into Marquette Street south of the property. In addition, Scott County has their landfill just east of the development. So as part of that right-of-way acquisition, it accommodates land to bring that landfill back into the Scott County portion and then shift the road over to clear the landfill portion.
And to clarify that, the landfill's been there longer than it was within the city limits. So the landfill was there first. When they surveyed it after the landfill had been closed in the 70s, it was discovered that the landfill actually was in dedicated right-of-way. So additional right-of-way needs to be expanded and is part of this plat. So you cannot dig over the landfill. Some of the conditions are related to concern from the Waste Commission of Scott County that maintains that landfill related to potential methane leak, although it is a very stable landfill with not a lot of readings at this time, but it is out of abundance of caution to ensure that the landfill is not accidentally uncapped from infrastructure, as well as finding ways for a methane or other vapors to leak through under foundations.
So is it typical of us to have industrial directly abutting residential, and what type of buffering are we going to require?
So this was originally part of a PDD that when the
Right.
new zoning code came into place, staff assigned the uses out with appropriate zoning districts to eliminate the PDD. So that would need to form, they'd have to do extended setbacks. So normally, some of the industrial land would not have a setback. It would in this circumstance, and then they would need to meet the buffer requirements with fence and landscape as it abuts. Now, there is no planned development within the residential area at this time. There actually is no planned development at all. This has helped to facilitate some land transactions. So when it does get down to the point that there is development, staff would look at that. And it would also require a new preliminary plat is done on this property prior to any residential subdivision.
Looking to the future, I know we hear time and time again that the realtor told us that this would never be this. Would there be a requirement somewhere down the road to allow those people possibly purchasing land abutting industrial that they know that they're buying next to industrial? I mean, I'm just concerned down the road of somebody saying, we were never told this?
So the nice thing at this point is that the zoning is in place as industrial versus residential. That the lot is not actually for sale for the residential components of it. And so it would be industrial before residential, and in this case, I would imagine.
Okay. That's all I had. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Lammers?
In keeping with Chairman Ingram's question, if there's no plans for anything for this land at this time, do you even need an industrial zoning there, or could it be all considered all residential?
Well, the zoning exists there. That is the, by ordinance, what the existing zoning districts are. So really what this is doing is subdividing out each zoning district separate from each other to facilitate future sales. So this isn't a matter of discussion related to rezonings. It's just a discussion on the subdivision itself.
Is there an opportunity for that industrial to be rezoned residential in the future?
From a planning perspective, I don't think that the city would self-initiate rezoning that to residential. It's on 76. Everything along that is also industrial. Honestly, if we think about it in the future, I find it unlikely that the residential component north of Goose Creek will stay residential.
Thank you.
Any additional questions at this time? Is the petitioner present? Do they wish to speak?
Mike Richmond with Townsend Engineering. I represent the owner. As Laura mentioned, the platting is being done to facilitate a conveyance. The main thing that's being looked at is the industrial tract. So there is an interested party in that. That would be developed first, so the industrial would be in place before any residential homes were built.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Any other questions?
I would say that a note to the commission, when development occurs, as needed, they would have to put in the infrastructure. So that's why it's likely that the 76th Street developments will occur first. They have street access. So the Marquette Street would need to be put in, as well as significant other roads to subdivide the residential into lots.
Good clarification, Laura. Thank you. Any additional questions at this time before we vote? Seeing none, roll call, please. Commissioner Tallman?
Tallman, yes. Hepner?
Yes.
Bransgard?
Yes.
Reinhardt?
Yes.
Manus?
Yes.
Garrington?
Yes.
Stelk? Yes. And Lammers?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next case, please.
Case F 21-04, request a Speedway LLC for a final plat on a two-lot subdivision on 16.74 acres located at 8320 Hillendale Road. Staff recommends the Planning and Zoning Commission accept the listed findings and forward case F 21-04 to the City Council with a recommendation for approval subject to the 16 conditions. And I so move.
Second.
Case number F 21-04 has been moved and seconded for discussion. Staff?
Turn myself off.
Thank you.
So this is actually currently under development Speedway gas station at the corner of Hillendale and Northwest Boulevard. It is to separate out the lot where the development is occurred from the remaining land from their sale. No known development is occurring on Lot 2. So it is currently zoned I-1 light industrial, and its future land use is also in industry. As you can see, it's a two-lot subdivision. There is a proposal to extend Dangler Drive an additional 200 feet. One of the conditions on the plat is to extend that to meet the lot line. It's an extra 14 feet to match the lot line for Lot 2. At this time, there is no plans for further expansion of Dangler Drive, but we do like to have that option available in the future, depending on future development north of that area. The recommendations, I know it sounds like a lot of them are related to notes on the plat. It came in with no notes So there are a lot of notes that we like standard on plats to help clarify the use of easements and setbacks and sidewalks and things like that. So I would say about half of these conditions are related specifically to notes that we want added to the plat. Also, one of them is moving tables out of the lot so that it is a clear lot. You can see that it's a lot. So generally speaking, there are no major issues associated with the actual subdivision. It's more the technical aspects of the plat.
Thank you, Laura. Any questions from commissioners? Final call? Seeing none, roll call, please. Commissioner Tallman?
Hepner,
Yes.
Bransgard,
Yes.
Reinhardt,
Yes.
Manus,
Yes.
Garrington,
Yes.
Stelk,
Yes.
Lammers,
Yes.
and Tallman, yes.
Next case, please.
Case F21-05, request of Third Gen LLC for a final plat of a two-lot subdivision on 13.11 acres located at 3053 Research Parkway. Staff recommends the Planning and Zoning Commission accept the listed findings and forward case F21-05 to the City Council with a recommendation for approval subject to the 5 listed conditions, and I so move.
Second.
Case number F21-05 has been moved and seconded for discussion. Staff?
The proposed two-lot subdivision is located at the intersection of Research Parkway and Research Drive. The current industrial building that you see there on the map is Romer Machine. So this subdivision will essentially separate that existing facility from the undeveloped agricultural portion of the lot. So the property is zoned for light industrial, which is compatible with the surrounding area, as well as shown as industry on our future land use plan. So the newly created lot, Lot 1, shown on the west side of the plat, will have access off of Research Parkway. Staff is recommending a condition that access to Research Parkway either be a shared access route with the existing drive on the Romer Machine Lot 2 parcel. This would avoid any future median cuts into Research Parkway. And then their second option would be to access the piece of right-of-way on the northwest portion that extends there. And then they also have the option of an access drive that would extend to the cul-de-sac at Research Drive. And so there's 5 conditions recommended on the plat. The first 3 are standard subdivision plat requirements. Condition 4 mentions the access to Research Parkway be limited to sharing that existing drive with Lot 2 or the existing right-of-way on the west side of the property. And then condition 5 is that a note shall be added that sidewalk shall be constructed on Research Parkway prior to occupancy or when ordered by the city.
Thank you, Matt. Commissioners, any questions? Seeing none, roll call, please. Commissioner Tallman?
Bransgard,
Yes.
Reinhardt,
Yes.
Manus,
Yes.
Garrington,
Yes.
Stelk,
Yes.
Lammers,
Yes.
Tallman, yes, and Hepner.
Yep.
That concludes the reporting, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Tallman. Future business, anything?
There's one subdivision on our July 6th. Keep in mind that this is one of those unique months where there's what we call a free week. So we will have another meeting until July 6th. And according to our schedule, we've only had one submitted subdivision, so.
Thank you, Laura. Any communications or other business?
I believe that's it at this time. I will communicate that the Rock Church rezoning is back on committee of the whole for tomorrow for second consideration. So That one was paused temporarily in order to get the representing Ward Alderman seated to replace Alderman Peacock.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Reiners.
Thank you. Laura, the last time we were at our meeting, I spoke with you about statistics associated with the amount of water and a 100-year storm. And I'm thinking that with this proposal coming up with Dolan and a ravine, that it might be in our best interest to know what amount of water we're going to have to deal with as it replaces, when they remove that ravine, taking into consideration the topographical area and the depth of the water. There may be a significant issue associated with the flow. So, have you had any luck?
I unfortunately have not had that conversation with Natural Resources regarding the definition of what that is. I can tell you that for each development, the developer is required to submit those calculations for review, including all the background documentation, and that is reviewed by the engineering staff as well as Natural Resources staff to make sure that any kind of detention is sized appropriately. And then some other steps that are associated related specifically to stormwater. It's a newer one. It's a little onerous for staff to get it, but they also need to submit a signed and notarized maintenance and repair agreement that outlines the steps that are taken, how to maintain that detention or retention and water quality associated with any kind of development, who's doing it, what's their schedule, that they acknowledge the staff has the right to inspect it. The inspection cycles, I believe, are every 5 years. And that it also exercises the right for the city to if a development is not taking the responsibility to maintain that feature, the city will force the maintenance and charge back to the whoever owns and maintains that. That is a recorded document, so it carries with the land. And so that is another tool that we have associated specific to stormwater.
All right, thank you.
But I will get you more information on what it really means to have a 100-year storm.
Thank you, Laura. Commissioner Lambert.
Apologizing in advance, but I'm a little confused on the process we tabled. Mm-hmm. The next time we see the P21-03 come before us, is that coming with a staff recommendation? And then we're going to vote, or is that 2 cycles away?
Well, we tabled it for 1 cycle, assuming that staff will be able to meet with Bettendorf and have all of their information in place. It may come back to us looking for more time. It may come back to us with a recommendation.
Okay.
We don't know at this point, correct?
Correct. I'm hoping, hopefully, maybe even by the end of this week, we'll have additional information. To the best of my knowledge, the developer hasn't yet to schedule that neighborhood meeting. That would be something that needs to happen. There's several items that need to be addressed. If they are not addressed in time for the next Plan and Zone Commission, we will request tabling.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. I just needed to know if I needed to be prepared to vote or not, because there was a lot of unanswered questions tonight. So I didn't know if we had another opportunity to go through what we did tonight, or if we were actually voting the next time we address this. That's what I was trying to figure out.
We are hoping to have a vote at that time, but there will be more information coming forward.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Hefner, you would look like you wanted to speak. Are you good? Turn my mic on.
My concern was answered.
Oh, okay, thank you. I just want to make sure. Any additional thoughts, comments, questions? Oh, Commissioner Hefner, your light's on again. Stand back. I want to make a quick comment. It's great to see the majority of you back. It would have been great to have a full house. We had a pretty full house in the audience. I just want to say it's great seeing everybody in person and unmasked and healthy. And I look forward to moving through the rest of the year and having our usual full house. I thank you all.
Move to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. It's been seconded. All in favor signify by aye. Opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned. And thank you again.